Hello, everyone. My name is Brendan Marr. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator. And welcome to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. Today we are going to discuss a film that arguably had the biggest influence on Star Wars of classic cinema. What I mean to say is that it has been acknowledged by George Lucas himself as one of the biggest influences. And the parallels are pretty strong. And that, of course, is Akira Kurosawa's 1958 masterpiece, The Hidden Fortress. The Hidden Fortress is a Jiraigeki, which literally means era drama in Japanese. It's basically the historical samurai films of Japan are called Jiraigeki. Much can be said of the influence of the samurai films on Star Wars, particularly the films of Akira Kurosawa, or more properly, Kurosawa Akira. My Japanese pronunciation is terrible, so bear with me. The movie is very similar in many respects to Star Wars. And one of the earlier drafts of Star Wars was more closely aligned with this film than what made it to the actual finished version of Star Wars. Now, I have not read those original screenplays, so I can't comment on that. Now, Kurosawa, in my opinion, is the greatest filmmaker who ever lived. Or at least one could make a very strong case for that. I do also believe, well, I'll be clear, he is my favorite director. I think I counted, I own like 18 of his movies from the Criterion collection. If you're wondering a good place to get a hold of really good versions of classic films, check out the Criterion collection. Now, the film stars the incomparable Toshiro Mifune, the greatest Japanese actor of his time, or at least the most famous Japanese actor. Think Ken Watanabe before there was a Ken Watanabe. Or Ken Watanabe, I should say. Like I said, my Japanese pronunciation is terrible. Okay, so let's get into it. The story is that two peasants, Tahei and Matashiki, who are deserters from a war, stumble across a princess in hiding with her treasure and with the old general, General Rokurota, or General Makabe, I should say, as her loyal defender. The peasants team up with the princess and her general in an attempt to get the princess safely across enemy lines to her clan territory. The two peasants are best friends, but they bicker and fight all the time. The princess is a bit tomboyish, and the old general is a renowned general that's famous throughout the land and known to be a cunning and great warrior. And they're in hiding from an oppressive nearby clan. Hiding at a hidden base. How interesting. We'll get to some of the parallels in a minute. Now, there has been some discussion about how much influence did this movie have on Star Wars. I'll give you my thoughts in a minute, but if you want to know more, as always, please check out How Star Wars Conquered the Universe by Chris Taylor. So we'll get there, and that is worth the read because it goes into further detail about how much influence this movie had on Star Wars. So the bickering peasants join up with the old general and the princess, and through some subterfuge get them to where they need to go. This, like most samurai movies, is set in, if I'm not mistaken, it is set in what is called the Sengoku period, which is the late 1500s in Japan, when the shogunate had very little power, or had fallen completely, depending on what year. The shogun, of course, being the true power in Japan. The emperor was merely a head of state, whereas the shogun was the head of government. In the Sengoku period, for a while there was no shogun, and warlords left and right fought for control of the most land, so that the emperor would name them shogun. That was one power that the emperor had that was extremely important, was he could name the shogun. So everybody, all the warlords were fighting to become shogun. Speaking of, if you want to, I cannot recommend enough the novel Shogun. Shogun is a fictionalized version of real events. Also, the miniseries from the early 80s is worth checking out, with Richard Chamberlain. It's very good. But check out the novel Shogun. It's really good. So, during this time, all these warlords and clans were fighting for control. And this story takes place during that. And thus you have the Yamana clan fighting the Akatsuki clan. And Hayakawa, and they just everybody fighting. Now it's funny, I laugh because in typical fashion, the movie apparently has the obsession with showing Toshiro Mifune's legs as much as possible. I don't know. He's a pretty muscular and strong guy, so I guess because this is not the first time in a samurai movie directed by Kurosawa that we see Toshiro Mifune wearing an outfit that basically shows off his legs. I don't know why. It just makes me laugh. Now, I'm going to be discussing further down the road other movies directed by Kurosawa. But in terms of probably his most accessible movie, this is pretty accessible. Others I will recommend down the line. Many of the actors who appeared in Kurosawa's in this film are in a lot of other Kurosawa films. So he seemed to have a pretty good working relationship. So I'm going to talk in a minute about the comparisons with Star Wars. But I think that it's definitely important to talk about this film, particularly because George Lucas was in college when foreign films began to become really popular in the United States. During the mid-60s, foreign cinema started to do really well in the U.S. This film did not make a lot of money in the North American markets, but it did introduce, or at least was a big splash with the film students of the time. And these film students, of course, included George Lucas, but also included Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola, John Milius, Brian De Palma, all the directors of that time who were up and coming, who are now some of our most legendary filmmakers. And they drew a lot of inspiration from the works of Kurosawa. I'll probably do an entire episode about that further down the road. So, that's kind of a general overview of the effect this movie had on just the general film consciousness. Now let me just talk really quick about Kurosawa's style here. Kurosawa has one of the greatest cinematic styles I've ever seen. Kurosawa is the master of movement. Kurosawa knew how to move the camera, or to do things with the camera that were always giving the viewer something interesting to look at. Whether it's watching trees and bushes blow in the wind, whether it's people moving in very interesting ways, whether it's just lots of faces filling the screen, And whether it's the way the camera itself actually moves, Kurosawa is the master of movement, making his images nothing short of breathtaking. Extremely compelling. Now, one could argue that maybe sometimes the style overwhelms the substance. But I don't think the substance is lacking that much. Though certainly what may stand out to people more are the iconic imagery. Kurosawa had a very long and illustrious career. Kurosawa made movies for 51 years, made 30 movies. And directed 2 films which received the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film. And oddly enough, he got more love with his films outside of America than he did in America. Oh, shoot. I phrased that completely incorrectly. I'm so sorry. My brain completely went blank on me. What I meant to say was, his films are more loved outside Japan than they are in Japan. There's been much debate about why this is. But it really, the effect of his films, and I think the general feeling among cinema lovers about Kurosawa exists thanks in no small part to the fact that our legendary filmmakers of today, George Lucas and others, were so influenced by Kurosawa. And we, of course, look to their guidance as great filmmakers. And so when they say they love Kurosawa, many cinema lovers, including myself, have gone and watched a lot of the works of Kurosawa and been sucked in. I absolutely love this filmmaker, and I am so glad that our elder statesmen of filmmaking nowadays look back very fondly on the works of Kurosawa. And I think because of that, Kurosawa has become a legendary figure in film. Now, arguably, The Hidden Fortress may be one of the more lightweight of Kurosawa's films. Perhaps one of the more Hollywoodized. But nonetheless, it is a fantastic film, and if this film works for you, then by all means check out his other films as well. You can buy them from the Criterion Collection, or you can subscribe to the Criterion channel, which is a subscription streaming service for classic films. Many classic films that you may have never even heard of. In fact, most of the movies on their collection you've never heard of. That's what's so great about the Criterion channel and collection, is that it's movies that are preserved that might otherwise not get the love and preservation and physical care that they need. So, yes, if The Hidden Fortress works for you, then you would, I don't think you'll be disappointed with any of Kurosawa's other films. Okay, we're going to take a short break, and I'll be back, and we will discuss the parallels with um, this film and Star Wars. Though, to be warned, I should say, there might be spoilers included. I'll be right back. Hello there, this is Brennan Marr, host of Page Turners They Were Not, a Star Wars podcast. And I'm here to tell you about Anchor. Anchor is the best way to make a podcast. Why is that? Well, first off, it's free. Yes, you heard me right. Anchor is free. Anchor has all the tools you need to make a podcast from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you on various platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can make money from your podcast. And get this, with no minimum listenership. That means you can make money even if no one listens to your podcast. That, of course, is not ideal, as Anchor will allow you to spread your podcast, bring in more viewers, and you can make more money because of it. Everything you need to make a podcast is in one place on Anchor. If you're interested, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Thank you, and may the force be with you. Hello everyone, I'm back. Okay. Now we're going to discuss how this movie connects with Star Wars. There will be some spoilers ahead. So be warned. I'll try to point them out so you can mute if you need to. First off, the two peasants, who sort of are our main characters, are like R2-D2 and C-3PO. George Lucas says he had the idea to make them like the narrators, to start the movie with C-3PO and R2-D2 and to kind of tell the story to some degree from their viewpoint, that he was inspired to do this because of the Hidden Fortress. That two peasants, the lowest rung in society, are the ones who are guiding us through this story. Which is what he wanted to do with R2-D2 and C-3PO. There is the old general, kind of a legendary warrior, is very much a Obi-Wan Kenobi character. The kind of tomboyish, bossy princess trying to stay safe in her hidden fortress, or save the day and get back to her rightful place. That's very much Princess Leia. Also, the old General Makabe, meets a former rival of his, and they engage in a duel. Sounds a bit like when Vader meets up with Obi-Wan on the Death Star. And also the idea of a time of civil wars. That, of course, is very much when Star Wars is set. And also, even at the very end of the movie, there is a... Now, this is going to get into spoilers. In fact, let me warn you that for the next 2 minutes, I'll be indulging in spoilers. So there's a ceremony at the very end of the movie that's like the medal ceremony at the end of Star Wars. Including the princess all done up in her fancy outfit. So like how Leia was done up in a more fancy outfit at the end. And the peasants are given a gold medal of sorts. Just like our heroes are at the end of Star Wars. Furthermore, the guy who duels General Makabe, his rival general, later turns on his allies and joins up with our heroes, helping them to win. That's very similar to what Vader does. Now, we could discuss how much of this movie is intentionally influencing the rest of Star Wars. But, as I mentioned on several episodes of this particular series, that whether it's intentional or not, the parallels are there. Now, certain things George Lucas has said did inspire him. Like the two peasants, and comparing them to C-3PO and R2-D2. But certainly, I don't think Lucas knew that eventually Darth Vader was going to turn and join the good guys. Just like Makabe's rival does in the Hidden Fortress. But maybe down the line, when he was writing Return of the Jedi with Lawrence Kasdan, maybe that idea came along. Said, hey, remember that time that guy did that in the Hidden Fortress? But whether or not, this is really a series about the parallels that I see. And for me, it's definitely a connection. There is a lot that could be seen in this film. There's a whole opening sequence that is similar to R2-D2 and C-3PO being separated and then coming back together on the Jawa Sandcrawler. Okay, so that's kind of the end of the spoilers. Now, this movie is a movie that I cannot recommend enough. Its actual title is The Three Villains of the Hidden Fortress. I don't know who the three villains of the Hidden Fortress are supposed to be. But also, the idea of a secret base. Hey, that's very Star Wars. And I guess, are they supposed to be villains of the Hidden Fortress? In fact, there's a line in Star Wars where General Motti says Hidden Fortress. Just as he's being choked by Vader. Okay. So regardless, this is a great entry point into the works of Kurosawa. Akira Kurosawa is arguably the greatest filmmaker who ever lived. And certainly one of the most influential. In fact, I'll probably do an entire episode at some point talking about how the movies of the American New Wave, or New Hollywood, which is basically 70s cinema, are very inspired by the works of Kurosawa. So, that's really a view of why The Hidden Fortress is such an important film when it comes to Star Wars. Definitely worth the watch. It is a good film. Probably not Kurosawa's best, but a great film nonetheless. So if you get a chance to see it, let me know the parallels you see with that galaxy far, far away. So my name is Brendan Marr. That noise you hear is my ventilator. And thank you for tuning in to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you.